Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Prehistoric Playground, and today we are going to be talking about Dimetrodon. I have been wanting to talk about this animal for so long, and we're finally getting to it. I'm kind of excited if you can't tell. So, let's get right into it. Dimetrodon is an extinct relative of the primitive mammals. It is characterized by a large, upright, snail-like structure on its back. Dimetrodon lived from about 286 million to 270 million years ago. During the Permian period, there are no less than 15 named species of Dimetrodon, the vast majority of which have been discovered in North America, and a majority of those in Texas. It's a Texan animal. Only one species, Dimetrodon teutonus, hails from Western Europe, which was connected to North America hundreds of million years ago. A full one-third of these species were named by the famous dinosaur hunter Edward Drinker Cope, which may help explain why Dimetrodon is so often identified as a dinosaur rather than a plesiosaur. It's a very common misconception. Speaking of the misconception, I guess we can talk about this. Dimetrodon was not a dinosaur. It became extinct around 60 million years before the first dinosaurs even evolved, almost the same amount of time that separates humans from Tyrannosaurus rex. And it is more closely related to living mammals, including humans. More related to mammals than it is to any other living or extinct reptile. And they are frequently mistaken for reptiles such as dinosaurs. The misconception is reinforced by the fact these animals are often referred to as mammal-like reptiles. It's a term that reflecting outdated methods for classifying organisms. In reality, these ancient mammal relatives, known as synapsids, are more closely related to living mammals than they are to any other reptiles. The evolutionary lineages containing the synapsids, like Dimetrodon and mammals, and reptiles, including diapsids, like dinosaurs, split sometime over 324 million years ago from a lizard-like common ancestor, which many early synapsids look reptilian. When we look back now, we can easily see that they are more closely related to us and truly cannot be called reptiles at all. What is even more interesting, however, is that Dimetrodon belonged to a group of synapsids called the Cetacodon titan, a group to which a distant ancestor of living mammals once belonged. These early mammalian ancestors probably did not have a sail, but otherwise would have looked very similar to Dimetrodon. Dimetrodon was not some abhorrent reptilian monster from a bygone age. It was once our close evolutionary cousins from the time long before first true mammals ever evolved. So if you go back about 200 million generations, your family probably looks something like this. So you're probably going to be asking, what did this strange creature look like? Well, Dimetrodon grew up to a length of around 3.5 meters, which is 11.5 feet, had a large, quote-unquote, sail on its back that may have more functioned in temperature regulation. The surface area would allow it to warm up or cool off more efficiently. In this way, it could have easily picked off slower prey that was still warming up. The sail may have also been used in mating rituals and to warn off other predators. The sail was supported by neural spines, each one sprouting out from an individual vertebrae. It was presumably formed by elongated vertebral spines connected to a membrane containing many blood vessels. The skull of Dimetrodon was high and narrow, and the region of the front of its eyes was long. The skull of Dimetrodon certainly looks monstrous, but if you look behind the eye socket, you can see something that immediately tells you who its closest relatives were. There is a single large hole there, called the temporal fenestra, and it was placed there where some of the lower jaw muscles attached to the skull. The number of these holes in the part of the skull can immediately tell a paleontologist what kind of animal you're looking at. Giving its prominent sail is an odd fact that Dimetrodon was named after more of its obscure features. The two different kinds of teeth embedded in its jaws. The dental arsenal of Dimetrodon included sharp canines in the front of its snout, ideal for digging into quivering, freshly killed prey, and sharing teeth in the back for grinding up tough muscle and bits of bone. Even still, this reptile's dental arsenal would have been no match for the predatory dinosaurs that lived tens of millions of years later. So if a Dimetrodon got into a fight with a velociraptor, the velociraptor probably would have won. For more than a century, it has been depicted as a sluggish, belly-dragging beast with sprawling legs, but it might have actually been held its legs in a more upright position and kept its stomach off the ground as it walked. Caroline Abbott at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, said that it's particularly surprising that a gait was described that, given the fossil trackways left by Dimetrodon, seems to tell a different story. The relatively narrow distance between the left and right sets of footprints suggests Dimetrodon did not have sprawling legs. That's where the real head scratcher is, says Abbott. The trackways are more narrow than you'd expect. In a lot of cases, it lacked the belly dragging marks. With her colleague Hans Dieter Suze at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., Abbott measured Dimetrodon bones and looked at the configuration of the skeleton at the shoulder and the hip. She then compared this information with data collected from 11 living mammals, including the short-beaked echidna, and 12 living reptiles, including the Komodo dragon, at the Savannah monitor, and the speckled caiman. When Abbott and Suze used software to run their data, they found that Dimetrodon seemed to more closely match the caiman, a crocodilian that can hold its legs vertically enough to raise its body off the ground, particularly when it runs. Dimetrodon may have had its body in a similar way. So this would be where we get to the pop culture stuff, but really not a lot of pop culture stuff. So we actually decided to change the name from pop culture to features. Dimetrodon can be frequently found in the pages of a dinosaur book. Pretty much any dinosaur book that you look at, you will see Dimetrodon in it, even though it's not a dinosaur. A t-shirt sold at the annual meeting of Society of Vertebrate Paleontology features an angry Dimetrodon shouting, "I am not a dinosaur!" It makes an appearance in James Mason's film Journey to the Center of the Earth. In Power Rangers Dino Thunder, one of the Black Ranger's Zords was a Dimetrodon. Dimetrodon is often reportedly seen in the dinosaur toy sets, even though it's not a dinosaur. In Dino Saucers, don't ask me, I have no idea. The character Dimetro is an anthropomorphic Dimetrodon. Dimetrodon has made an appearance in The Land Before Time. It was shown in the television documentary Walking with Monsters, called Before the Dinosaurs in the US. Now I want to get into talking about the diet and behavior. Dimetrodon was a carnivore, that much we know, but how it hunted and how it would have gotten away from predators, we don't really know a lot. In Walking with Monsters, baby Dimetrodon were shown hatching with sails, fully independent, but no Dimetrodon eggs have been found yet, and it's entirely possible that the sail would have been hard to store in the egg, was either absent or not rigid upon hatching. Dimetrodon was a carnivore, like I said, and in the program it was stated that Dimetrodon consumed 90% of a carcass, while lions today only eat 70%, and Dimetrodon would only eat intestines after shaking out the waste inside. Dung is one thing a Dimetrodon cannot stomach, according to the narrator of the program. Hatchlings also had to sprint towards the trees after hatching in order to escape cannibalistic adults. These behaviors seem to be based on Komodo dragons, and thus attributing them to Dimetrodon is almost entirely speculative. Move on to the part of the originators who have been presented the characteristics as fact rather than speculation in order to heighten the sense of realism for the program. Even though, like I said before, we have no idea how Dimetrodon hatchlings would have acted because there is no evidence to support the fact that they would have done this. Well, that was Dimetrodon. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a lot longer than Meganura, I know. I apologize for that still. If you want to see more episodes of Prehistoric Playground, tune in every other Monday for a new episode at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. Like, comment, subscribe down below, and as always, stay frosty.